Welcome back to another episode of Politics Unfiltered. Today we are on the road. We're in Nashville, Tennessee with my friend, Democratic Party Chair Ken Martin.
Yeah.
Ken, you know it's strange saying Democratic Party Chair because we were together before you were the big dog.
Well, it's good to be with you, man, and I miss you. I'm proud of what you're doing right now. I'm proud you're still engaged in this conversation. Really proud of all the work that you did here in Tennessee over the years to build this party. And again, thanks for having me on.
Well, it's good to see you in Tennessee, and it's just a testament of the work that you're doing. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on the pleasantries. We've had enough time before we started recording. I wanted to ask you though, because I've been curious. You and we were talking about this. You went from a winning state party chair, just responsible for the Democrats elected in office in your state.
Yes.
Just responsible for the counties in your state and the Democratic apparatus in your state. But now, an ASDC president, where you were responsible for all of us, you were like, corralling all of the chairs from across the country. But now you have all of the states, all of the territories, all of the counties inside of those states, all of the candidates, all of the incumbents,
what are you
all of the incumbents inside the states.
No, I'm just kidding.
How has and you're nearing your 1 year.
Yes.
How has the transition from ASDC president, DNC vice president, state party chair been to this job? Like,
well,
how has that first 10 months been for you?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Let me say, look, it's I just passed my 10-month mark on Monday, actually, December 1st. And so, but it's felt like 10 years. Seriously, it's a long time. A lot has happened in those 10 months, of course. But, let me say one thing about this role. It's different for sure in terms of the scope and scale. But, when I was running for this position, if it wasn't me, I wanted it to be Ben Wickler from Wisconsin. And the reason why is because I think as state party chairs, you're uniquely equipped to meet this moment, to really understand what it means to organize at every single level of this party. That, our job, of course, as state party chairs, I've always said being a chair at any level, whether you're a county chair, you're a state chair, or you're now a national chair, it's a political equivalency of being a fire hydrant, right? You get pissed down by everyone. You get all the, blame when you lose, none of the credit when you win. If you're doing your job right, you're saying no more than you're saying yes, meaning at the end of the day, you have far fewer.
But the hydrants are much
yeah,
larger.
It's much bigger.
Larger now.
A lot more people pissing on you now, right? But let me say this truly. It is a challenging job for sure, but one that I felt like, I was prepared to do because of all of my time spent in campaigns and elections over the years, and then as a state party chair in Minnesota for 14 years, helping to build infrastructure. So the role of the national party chair really is no different than a state party chair or a local party chair. It's just a much larger playing field. We got a lot more people to please, a lot more things to do to build that infrastructure around the country. But we got great partners on the ground here in Tennessee and in local county committees throughout the state and throughout the nation that I get to work with every day.
Obviously, we know in politics, timing is everything. And I think you're the right chair at the right time. A lot of people across the country, and we've got listeners from all 50 states listening to the podcast. A lot of people across the country, they don't really understand how tough of a role, but how important of a role that the DNC chair serves. And having the right person at the helm to meet the moment is critical. I've been saying, I saw what happened in New Jersey and in Virginia, and even with closing the gap here in Tennessee. And I said, Ken Martin, that's that Minnesota magic. When you took over as chair in Minnesota, I mean, you all went on a winning streak.
That's right. Well, people forget about Minnesota. They think it's a very blue state, right? It's a very purple state. It's always one of the closest presidential margins. This last presidential campaign, it was the 8th closest state in the country. The reality is it's a very purple state. When I came in 2010, I'd just helped get elected a Democratic governor in the first time in 24 years. And I remember this, Hendrell. He says, hey, I want to meet with you about a job after I get him elected. I go home to my wife. I said, oh, this is great. He's going to offer me a job in the administration. And the next day I go in there and he says, I want you to go and be the party chair. I said, what? Are you kidding me? What kind of reward is this? I just busted my ass to get you elected.
He's like, what about chief of staff?
Yeah, right, exactly. And so, but look, I was glad to go and do it. I told him, by the way, I said, I'm only going to do it for 2 years. I'm going to get you back in the majority. Said I'm going to go off and do something else, right? I stayed there for 14 years.
Yeah,
right?
You were there when I got there. Thankfully, you were still there when I got there.
Yeah, no. And, but the reality for me is, we took, at that time, we had just come off of a historic election losses for the Minnesota DFL, which is the Democratic Farmer Labor Party of Minnesota. The morale was low. Donors were fleeing. People were pissed off, right? And it's very similar to this moment right now, right? And that moment taught me that we had to dig in. We had to focus on building a long-term plan to help us get out of the wilderness, to help us win again, and to win not just one election cycle, but win for the long term. And as a result in Minnesota, under my time as chair for 14 years, we never lost a statewide race. Now think about that. Up to that point, there have been Republican governors, Republican senators, Republican congressional members, and state majorities for Republicans. And under my time, that ended. And it didn't end just because of my brilliance. So tell me, I got a pea-sized brain. It ended because we focused relentlessly on building that infrastructure, right? And never taking our foot off the gas. As I always say, you remember me saying this, you run like you're 20 points behind, even if you're 20 points ahead. We didn't take anything for granted. We kept our eyes on the prize, and we focused on a long-term plan to build the durable infrastructure you need to win up and down the ballot. And, look, there's no rocket science to this, but the reality is you do need people that are focused on a plan relentlessly and a long-term vision. And that's one of the reasons I ran for this job, because I've seen our party over the last 20 to 30 years focus just on either one candidate, one campaign, or one election cycle at the expense of having a long-term approach. And you know this, Hendrell, because we've talked about this here in Tennessee. You see that when I came up in politics was the 90s. Tennessee was completely blue.
Much different place.
A Democratic governor, 2 Democratic senators,
state
legislature. So there's no such thing as a permanent red state or a permanent blue state. And when you start ignoring blue states, they become red.
Yeah.
And that's what's happened. When you keep ignoring red states, they're never going to become blue. So we've got to organize everywhere. And that's been the motto at the DNC, by the way.
And you all, I think, Tuesday night's special election here in Tennessee was a testament to that. Organizing everywhere, not leaving any stone unturned. Every county, every vote, seeing the national investment into the state, seeing the organizing effort into the state makes me, as former chair, it makes me proud to really see that moment play out and to be able to watch it on the national scale. But looking at that, looking at what happened in Virginia, looking at what happened in New Jersey, looking at what happened in special elections that have happened all this year.
Yes,
I think people are beginning to realize that something special is probably going to happen in 2026.
Well, it could. Look, I will say this: I'm confident about our chances in 26, but I'm not complacent. What I mean by that is we can't rest on our laurels. Yeah, we just had last month. We had the most historic off-year election in the Democratic Party history. Right? Wins up and down the ballot, which I'll come back to. But the reality is we can't make the mistake of believing that that's just going to usher in victories next year. We got to go out there and work for it. We got to go out there and keep organizing, right? All gas, no brakes. All gas, no brakes. That's our motto at the DNC. We've got to keep on getting out there, organizing, talking to voters, doing the work we need to build the infrastructure and put ourselves in a position to win. But let me say this, because I think you mentioned this earlier. It's really important. Donald Trump was inaugurated on January 20th of this year, right? Between his inauguration and this election, this last Tuesday here in Tennessee, There have been election after election up and down the ballot across the country, and the Democrats have overperformed in all of those elections, on average by about 16 percentage points. I mean, here in Tennessee 7, it was a 14-point overperformance, right? Significant swing. All 14 of those counties in Tennessee 7 swung to the left. That's been happening all over the country. And as a result, we've seen historic victories. Starting out, by the way, early on in February of last year, there was a special election for a state Senate seat up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. They flipped a state Senate seat that was a plus 23% Trump district, right? They won that seat. And what was surprising about that, they elected their first Democrat ever since the 1880s.
Jeez.
So what is happening in this country right now is we are winning up and down the ballot throughout the nation in places we haven't won in a long time. And it's not, just by happenstance. We have made deep investments in these places because what I believe to my core is that when you organize everywhere, you can win anywhere. You can put yourself in a position to win anywhere. And it was true in Tennessee 7, right?
Yeah.
Yes, we didn't win, but we still won. Sometimes when you lose, you win. And what do I mean by that? We swung every part of that district.
It energized a whole new generation of volunteers and voters.
All over. I was here a few weeks ago canvassing with Afton and her team, and there were 150 people at this canvas launch here in Nashville.
Great.
And she asked the volunteers to raise their hands if it was their first time canvassing. Over half of the people,
wow.
75 people raised their hands. That's what is happening around the country. People are coming out of the woodwork because they want to save their democracy. They understand what's happening in this country. And look, a month ago, everyone focuses on the top 5, the big 5, California, Pennsylvania, of course, us keeping those 3 Supreme Court races, the gubernatorial race in New Jersey and Virginia, and of course, the mayor's race in New York City, all fantastic victories across the board. But what happened underneath, to me, is the most rewarding, because we saw some of the reddest counties in this country and some of the reddest parts of this country start to move more Democratic, and we won. Think about this. In Mississippi, we made a major 6-figure investment in their legislative races down there. Guess what? They picked up 3 seats. Why does it matter? Well, guess what? Those 3 seats that they picked up helped them break the Republican supermajority in their legislature.
And it gives people hope.
And it gives them hope.
Yeah.
But that's how you start to actually change a red state to a blue state. You got to start making investments. And you can't just focus on the top of the ticket and the big races. You got to focus at building power at the local level, at the state level, right? That's why I ran, because our party had been too focused in Washington, D.C. on just building federal power at the expense of actually state power and local power. And this is what the conservatives have been doing so masterfully for 50 years.
And they've been disciplined.
Very disciplined.
Year after year, election after election,
Yes.
they've been disciplined. And you know what's great to me, though, is that you have been able to really keep the party's sights set on winning back power for the people, and you haven't got caught up in all the bullshit that the pundits are selling about, young versus old and left versus right. I mean, you have said we're going to support our candidates and we're going to win with our candidates.
Yes.
And that's, to me, that sends the clearest message that no matter what the talking heads are saying, you understand the true goal.
Yeah. Well, listen, we have one goal. It's singular. It's to win.
Win.
Right. And that means you got to stay laser focused on that. You got to drown out all the noise.
Yeah.
There's lots of critics. My family calls me all the time. They read all the comments. They're worried about me. I say it's just got to drown out the noise, right?
Yeah.
I'm here for one reason, and it's to win. And, there's always going to be critics. There are always going to be people who think you should do it this way, you should do it that way. I have a plaque in my office that my friend, former governor, gave to me that said, "None of us are as smart as all of us." I don't believe I have all the answers, right? None of us do. Politics changes all the time. But one thing I do know, Hendrell, and I know you subscribed to this when you were chair here, that you win through addition. not through subtraction.
That's true.
You win by bringing people into the conversation. You win by growing your coalition. You win by being a big tent, not a small tent, right? And sometimes that means things are messy in our party. That means we have different ideas and different ways of doing things. We have different opinions on a whole host of issues. But that's the beauty of the Democratic Party. That's what separates us from the Republicans. We're not homogenous in our thinking. We're not homogenous in who belongs to the party. We're a very diverse party with lots of different ideas and thoughts on how to get to the same goal. And you could see that a month ago, right? You had Abigail Spanberger, Mikey Sherrill, and Zoran Mamdani, all three different types of Democrats, right? Running on the same issue, affordability, and focused on bringing down the cost for people, making people's lives a little easier to live, right? And giving people hope that they can achieve the American dream and climb the economic ladder and build a better life for their families. And so let's focus, instead of on the differences in the Democratic Party, because there are, right? Let's focus on the things that tie us all together.
You said two things that brings me to my next topic. You talked about, your family reading the comments and, being concerned about you. And then you talked about affordability. It puts one person in mind for me, the shit show that's in the White House right now, calling affordability a con job or hoax or whatever he's calling it. The vitriol that he's still spewing about Democrats and lefties and lunatics and all of this stuff. I mean, you all saw a very tragic moment in Minnesota this year, and you're the party chair. This, I call Trump 2.0 the retribution term.
That's right.
When you and your staff are sitting around, like, listening to some of the craziest shit that a human being could be saying from the Oval Office, do you look at this moment and say, we're in greater trouble than I imagined?
Well, what I would say is I never thought in my lifetime I would see what's happening in this country, the Constitution being shredded in front of our eyes. The norms of civil society being completely thrown out, the guardrails of our democracy completely being ignored, right? I think, as crazy as it sounds, Hendrell, I've been saying to folks, we got to rise above partisanship right now, because this isn't really about party. When we see our Constitution being shredded, when we see, values, frankly, when I was coming up, right, and I'm a lot older than you, but when I was coming up, there were values that united us as Americans that weren't Democratic Party values or Republican values. Things like a belief in the rule of law, a belief in due process, right, a belief in, separation of power, a fierce defense of our Constitution, the idea that we would stand up with our allies around the world and protect emerging democracies, right? And even as crazy as it is, I never thought I would say something like this, a belief in the First Amendment, freedom of speech. It's the most fundamental value as Americans, because that's the core of our democracy. Is no matter who you are, you can stand up and fight for your opinion, and you can voice it in this country. And now that's under attack. So when I say we need to rise above partisanship, what I'm saying in this moment, Hendrell, is what I think Joe Biden said in 2020, when he ran against Trump. He said, this fight is about the fight for the soul of our nation. He wasn't talking about fighting for Democratic Party values or our platform or his beliefs. He was talking about fighting for America and for this country. And that's what is nerve-wracking to me in this moment, because so much of what I was raised around, so much of what I believe in this American experiment, which is completely unfilled and unpromised, we know that, right? But the reality is that promise is still something that drives Americans, right? It's being completely shattered and torn apart in front of our eyes by this president and this administration. Now, what the reality is he's creating opportunities for us. What are those opportunities? Many people who supported him in the last election have abandoned him.
Yeah. I mean, if you just look at it, it's the country. Most people in this country cannot afford to live in Donald Trump's America, unless you can pony up $1 million, $2 million, $100 million for the ballroom. I mean, you're shit out of luck.
That's right.
I mean, people are struggling. Healthcare, food, SNAP benefits.
Yes.
I mean, all across the spectrum.
Yeah.
And he wants people to believe what Don't listen to anything. Don't listen to your bank account. Don't listen to your paycheck. Just listen to me.
Yep.
It's unaffordable in the country right now. And he promised, he went out and he lied. Snake oil salesman went out and lied.
That's right.
And promised to fix all of these things on day one. And I think even his people are waking up to realize that, we're in trouble.
Well, just yesterday, as you mentioned, he said affordability is a hoax. Try telling that to the millions of Americans right now. Most Americans who are struggling just to get by, living paycheck to paycheck, wondering how they're going to put food on the table, wondering how they're going to afford their health care, wondering how they're going to afford child care, right? Worried about putting gas in the car, how they're going to get back and forth from work. These are the everyday challenges that every American is facing right now, and it's much more of a crisis than it was before Donald Trump, than it was before Donald Trump took office. And what I mean by that is, look, inflation, clearly was an issue in the 24 election. It's one of the reasons Donald Trump won, because he said, look, I'm going to actually improve your lives.
Hadn't done a damn thing.
And he hasn't done one thing. In fact, just the opposite. And what he's done is shameful, because everything he's done has been to give tax breaks to those in our communities who already have the most. The billionaires, the rich, the powerful, the well-connected, the people who already have so much at the expense of people who are living literally on the margins in society, who are just barely surviving, hoping just for a chance and an opportunity to make a better life for themselves. And he's doing it on the backs of those folks. Now, look, when I was a young boy, my mom was a single mom. She had me when she was 15 years old. She raised 4 kids by herself, Hendrell, and she struggled mightily, like many young mothers do, as a house cleaner just to provide for her family. But if it wasn't for Medicaid when I was a young boy, I wouldn't have had health care. If it wasn't for SNAP, we wouldn't have had food. And certainly if it wasn't for a community of people who gave a shit about a mom and her 4 kids, I won't be here today. And so when I think about how shameful it is this summer, that big ugly bill they passed, and they all giving high fives in the back room about what they did to give tax breaks to the richest people in this country. No one's talking about what it means for families like mine and all the families that are going to suffer right now. 22 million families thrown off of SNAP benefits, 14 million people in this country losing health care because they won't get Medicaid benefits. And then what they're doing right now with the ACA tax subsidies, which are going to mean another 20 million people are going to be priced out of health insurance when their premiums increase in January. It's callous and it's wrong and it's just bullshit, because at the end of the day, many of those people put their faith in this guy, thinking he was going to stand up and fight for them.
And then the folks in Congress who are supposed to be a check on this guy,
yes,
have pretty much just bowed down and said, whatever you want, King Trump.
That's right.
I mean, the Republican Party has, in my opinion, left Americans to fend for themselves. And I hope, and I know you're traveling all over the country, maybe you're saying this, I hope that people are realizing that they actually have the power to change this stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
That the power really lies in their hands.
We are seeing that. I mean, look, in this election on Tuesday in Tennessee 7, right? What was remarkable, not just that all 14 counties shifted left, not just the overperformance, the 14% overperformance, not just the record number of volunteers and door knocks and all of that. The other piece of it was the turnout. Normally in special elections, you have pretty low turnout. The turnout in this election on Tuesday mirrored what you normally see in a midterm election in congressional districts in Tennessee. That's showing that people are highly energized, getting out and voting, getting out and volunteering. They see what's happening in this country and they're taking action, right? We saw that in those No Kings protests around the country, right, over this year. We've seen it in election after election with the overperformance, right? We've seen it with the volunteerism, the contributions, people rolling up their sleeves and doing whatever they can in this moment, because people, just like you and I, are anxious about what they're seeing. They're nervous about what the future portends for this country, right? They're worried about our democracy, completely being destroyed. But more importantly, they're worried about their family and their lives and their ability to actually provide and get ahead.
Kim, what's the consequences of us not being able to take back Congress in 2026.
Well, God help us if we don't.
What are the consequences for the American people? Because I don't think can you just put that into perspective for folks?
Well, let me just say it. I mean, look at all the damage he's done in 11 months. And just in 11 months, think about everything he's done. These 11 months, of course, as I said, they seem like 11 years. They seem like an eternity. And the reason is because all the damage he's doing, all the things that he's doing that are attacking people, dividing people, destroying our economy, making it harder for people to actually get ahead in life. Imagine if we don't put a check on this guy's power.
Yeah.
And he has 4 years of unimpeded power to be able to do whatever the hell he wants, whenever he wants, however he wants, with no consequence. I don't want to imagine that, because I can only imagine how and what that would look like for the American people. And that's why I got to stay laser focused on winning in November of next year. Now, I'm confident. Look, we need 3 seats to win the House back. 3 seats. The average swing in a congressional midterm for the party that's out of power, either party, Republicans or Democrats, when they're out of power, the average swing is 26 seats. And that spikes up to 38 seats, by the way, when you have a sitting president under 50%. Donald Trump just hit an all-time low just the other day at 30%. This president's going into his midterm election as the least popular president ever going into a midterm election. Now, that doesn't mean, like I said, we can't rest on our laurels and say, well, okay, might as well take a vacation. We're just going to win in 26.
Because he has double, triple, quadrupled down on this redistricting scheme that he's trying to pull off around the country.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, look, they have realized for years, not just now, but they realized for years they're on the wrong side of demographic shifts in this country. They're on the wrong side of the issues. So what do? They gerrymander. Think about Nashville, what they did to Jim Cooper, right? You know it better than I did, right? What they do is they know that they can't win, so what they do is cheat. They divide up Nashville, so they divide the Democrats into smaller and smaller chunks, put them into districts with Republicans, and essentially cost you a congressional member. They do that all over the country. Then with this mid-cycle redistricting, what they're doing right now, which is unconstitutional, right? Trying to steal seats, I say this because it doesn't surprise me. This is like a football team that's losing, right? And they know they're going to lose the game, so they call a timeout and they basically change all the rules, right, of the game. This is what they're trying to do. They know they're going to lose in 26.
Yeah.
So they're so desperate. What they're trying to do is have this power grab around the country, and we're not going to let them do that. As I said, we're going to fight fire with fire. I was the first person on the ground right after Greg Abbott bent the knee to Trump and kissed his ass and decided was to do that redistricting. I was down there in Houston with those Texas Democrats. We got General Holder and Hakeem Jeffries and others involved. I called governors around the country, and they immediately understood the assignment, right, which was we've got to save our democracy. And that means we can't be the only party with our hand tied behind our back. We're going to fight fire with fire. So every seat that they steal, we're going to make sure that we level the playing field. That's what happened with Prop 50 in California. If they continue this nonsense, we're going to do that in other states. Mark my word, we're not going to let them get away with it.
I think that was going to be one of those questions that I asked you. People keep saying, well, Democrats are weak. They don't fight hard enough. I know you're a fighter,
yeah.
And we see Democrats stepping up to fight. But what we're seeing also, people really relishing in that fighting fire with fire moment.
Yeah.
And that's in the beginning, I talked about having someone at the helm to meet the moment, right person, right time, right moment. And I think you're not going around the country telling people, yo, just spare them.
Right.
Spare them. I don't think Ken Martin's going around the country saying spare Trump's Republicans. Let me ask you.
Let me say on this, though, because I do think it's important. As much as I want us to keep resisting Donald Trump,
yeah.
and we have to call out his bullshit. We have to call out what he's doing. It's immoral. It's wrong. It's unconstitutional. And at the end of the day, we have to do that. But we can't just live in that space.
Yeah.
We also have to give the American people a sense of what we stand for, what we would do to make a difference in their lives, how we're going to actually improve their communities. And I think that's why we've been winning, because that's what our candidates all year long now have been doing. They've been focused on those issues that people are concerned about. But I will also say, look, I'm not only not going to spare Republicans, I'm also going to not spare Democrats, because the reality is it pisses me off when Democrats aren't using every single lever of power they can right now to fight back.
Yeah.
The stakes are so high. You know, I ask people all the time this simple question. If you're not willing to fight like hell for the things you believe in, do you really believe in them at all?
That's a good point.
Because that's the question. In this moment right now, when the stakes are higher than they've ever been, if we're not willing to stand up, use every ounce of power we have to fight back, then what the hell are we doing?
Yeah.
And you know, early on, when I was elected, about a month after I was elected, this was during the Doge cuts. They asked one of our leaders of Congress, what are you going to do to stop what's happening here? And he said, well, we don't have any power. You know what? See, this is where I differ. You always have power. You may not have legislative power. You may not have the ability to slow things down in Congress, right? But the reality is you do have power. You have the power of your voice. You have the power of your platform. You have the power to move public sentiment, right? You have the power to go out and organize people and help us win elections. No one is powerless.
Yeah.
Every person, not just people in positions of power like me and you, but every person has power. And what I'm asking people to do is use it. Every single day, use your power to help us actually win. Doesn't have to be grand. You could be standing in a grocery line, right? Talk to the person in front of you, right? You could be going to church, talk to someone at church, talk to someone at work, talk to your neighbors, talk to your family. The reality is you have power. Use it.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I've always said is that, I mean, we're the party with the best policies, the greatest ideas, but somehow when we're in power, some of those things never really come to fruition. And I'm a big believer that if we just enact 50% of the most life-changing policies that we've been advocating for, then I don't think Republicans could ever win again.
I agree with you 100%. And I'll tell you, that's one of the reasons we've been losing ground with so many parts of our coalition. Because we come around, usually 3 months before an election, we knock on someone's door. We say, vote, the first conversation we have is transactional.
Yeah.
Vote for us. Then they don't see us again for 2 years. Come back, we ask for their vote. Vote for us.
Speaking of coalitions, let me cut in on you a second. Speaking of coalitions, I know the Chair Harrison before you spent a lot of time and energy on building coalitions.
Yes.
Are those coalitions still growing? Are you still really vested in making sure, especially right now with everything that's happening with immigration, young people, them trying to take away young people, the Republicans trying to take away young men take them off the playing table. Are you putting just as much effort into that coalition building?
And more. And the reason why is because we lost so much ground. Over 20 years, we've been losing ground with big parts of our coalition.
And 24, we lost some big pockets.
No, we lost with Latino voters. We lost with young voters in 24. We lost with women. We lost with working class voters. In fact, we lost ground over the last 20 years with all parts of our coalition, right? And the reality is we've got a lot of work to do, and part of it is building that trust up, right? And I'll get back to that. But the reality, what we saw this year is the swings that Donald Trump made last year with big parts of our coalition have completely disappeared. The Latino voters have completely come back, right? There was such a big swing for him last year, 24% of Latino, a swing with Latino men towards Trump. Same with Latino women, huge swing there, right? Huge swing with young voters, especially young men. Guess what? This last election in November,
like it never happened.
They all swung back our way. But the challenge, and this is what I'm going to challenge Democrats on, is to not just fall into the trap of thinking that, okay, now they're with us.
Yeah.
It's you have to earn people's vote every single. Look, the African American community, the Black community, most reliable constituency is especially Black women, right? We went from 94% to 92% last year, right? We even lost ground with Black women. We lost ground with Black men. But the reality is, part of it is you can't make an assumption that any
True.
group is going to vote for you. And you know what? Most of the time when we talk to the Black community, it's about turning them out. We're making an assumption that you're Black, you're going to vote for us. And all we have to do is turn out someone who's Black and they're going to support us. Instead of actually having a conversation with Black voters and earning their vote and persuading them around our ideas and our candidates to vote for us, you see, we can't do that any longer. And it goes back to what I was saying about building trust. If your only time you're having a conversation with any voter, not just in the Black community, but the Latino community and the white communities, it doesn't matter, right? If the only time you're having a conversation with them is when you need something from them, it's a transaction. And that's how we have to get back to actually building trust around shared values, around issues, and never, ever feeling like we can take anyone's vote for granted. We got to earn it anew every single election cycle.
When I was chair, you said something very similar to me, and one of the things that I would go out and say to folks was that for us, it's not just about winning elections. Every single day, we should be trying to win the hearts and the trust of every voter. Let me ask you one final question. If voters are on the fence about 2026, thinking about not voting, feeling hopeless, feeling powerless, what will you be saying to them? Because for a long time, we have, in my opinion, we've been telling people, what's important to them, what issue is important to them, how they feel. But it seems like the tide is turning where we're saying to people, I understand where you're coming from. I 100% get how you feel. So in 2026, what do you say to those voters who are feeling powerless? What will be the message from the Democratic Party in 2026?
Well, look, I always say this in every election, right? Which is, I understand that you feel powerless, but you have power, and your greatest power is their ability to get out and vote for the change that you want. What do you want to see in your community? You can affect that by supporting candidates who are going to support you. Making sure that you get out and vote is the most important thing you can do. That is your superpower, and you don't want to surrender that, because when you don't vote, you're allowing other people to make those decisions for you. And sometimes those decisions aren't going to be in your best interests. So get out and vote, right? But secondly is this. I think for us to be able to win in 26, what we have to do is we have to stay focused on the issues that American people care about. And part of that is changing how we actually campaign. Instead of telling people, right, what we think they want to hear, let's open our damn ears and listen. I worked for Bill Clinton in 92. What he used to say is, look, if you want to, hear what the American people are feeling, go and sit in a cafe. Just listen to the people around you. Go sit at a Friday night football game and listen to the parents around you. That's what we got to do more of. And what my argument is, to give people hope, is this moment of despair, this moment of anxiety you're feeling, right? It can be solved when you get people in who actually give a damn about you and your community, who are going to do everything they can to fight and push for policies that actually will make a difference in your life and improve your lives and give you a shot to climb that economic ladder and achieve the American dream. I am absolutely confident we can win, but we need everyone to participate, and we need people to participate not out of an interest of helping the Democratic Party or helping this country, but helping themselves and their family get the shot that they deserve.
Thank you, my friend. I know you've been all over the country. You've been busy, but thank you for being in Tennessee.
Oh, man, it's so good to see you, Hendrell.
Thank you for coming by the show. To all of you who checked out this episode, make sure you like, subscribe. Make sure you follow Ken Martin. Follow the folks over at the Democrats, the DNC, to figure out how you can get involved, how you can use your power. Because as I'm crystal clear of, we're going to be hearing a lot more from Ken as we get closer to 2026. But thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
And as always, stay committed to this fight, because you do have a power that you need to use. This is another episode of Politics Unfiltered, and I'm out.